Hi, fourth graders, it's Maestra Julia here to read a fun read aloud for you that is called The Spirit of Tio Fernando, a Day of the Dead story. This is illustrated by Morella Fren Mayor and written by Janice Levy. At the very beginning of this book, it has an introduction to what Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos is all about. So I'd like to read that to you now before we hear the story. The Day of the Dead is a centuries-old holiday mixing ancient Aztec and traditional Catholic customs. It is celebrated throughout Mexico and Central America. In Mexico, where this story takes place, the holiday lasts from October 31st to November 2nd. During this time, people who have died are honored. Their spirits are believed to visit the earth. Altars are built in homes, and the markets are filled with special holiday foods. Plays and parades are held in many places. Often, people celebrate in the cemeteries. When the holiday is over and the spirits have returned to the spirit world, the celebrants are happy and at peace, knowing that they have made the souls of the dead feel loved and remembered. I love this book because it's going to show you a number of wonderful celebrations that people who celebrate Day of the Dead participate in to remember and honor the loved ones we've lost and to celebrate them and the cycle of life. Let's jump in. Wake up, my mother calls. It's the Day of the Dead. We're going to honor your Tio Fernando. As I get dressed, I watch the sun come up. I miss my favorite uncle, Fernando, who died 6 months ago. I named Fernando after him, but everyone calls me Nando. Tio Fernando had long, skinny legs, and the second toe of his right foot was longer than his big toe, just like mine. His mustache would tickle my chin when he lifted me in the air. He always brought me coconut candy that got stuck in my teeth. Yesterday, my mother scrubbed Tio Fernando's tombstone. I painted it pink and blue and pulled up loose weeds. I helped my mother set up the altar in the living room. First, we washed the walls and swept the floor. Then we opened a tablecloth with yellow and green embroidered birds. My mother laughed. Do you remember how Tio's parrot refused to talk? This morning, my mother places sweet-smelling candles on the table around pictures of Tio Fernando. In one of the photographs, I'm sitting on his shoulders. We are both wearing baseball caps. I remember when Tio Fernando let me pick his lucky numbers. He said if he won the loteria, he would be the richest man in Mexico, and we'd drive all the way to California to see the Dodgers play baseball. My mother puts my uncle's favorite foods, chocolate, cola, and mole, on the altar. I lay his wooden flute there too. When he visited, Tio Fernando would play it for me. When the altar is done, my mother makes lunch. The Day of the Dead is a time to remember people who have died, whom we will always love, my mother says. Tonight at the fiesta, we will bring Tio Fernando special things to the cemetery. We will meet with his spirit and show him he has not been forgotten. How will I meet Tio's spirit? Will I see him? Will he make noise? How will I know it is really him? I ask. So many questions. My mother kisses me. Some things we just know when it is time to know. She tucks some pesos in my pocket. Go to the market, Nandito. Buy some things that remind you of your uncle. What can I take to the cemetery for Tio? I wander through the market. Bread of the dead, Senor Romero shouts in the marketplace. He holds up loaves of bread that look like twisted bones. He squeezes icing from a tube and draws a skull and crossbones on a round cake. Here, Nando, Senor Romero hands me a blue and pink sugar skull with tinfoil eyes. He writes my name on its forehead. Thank you, Senor Romero. I stare at my name on the skull. How will I meet Tio Fernando's spirit? I don't know, Nando, but when you do, your heart will be full. I think of the candy my uncle will throw in the air and catch in his mouth. I buy a skeleton of marzipan candy and a cake baked narrow and skinny like Tio Fernando. Devil's costumes, Senora Magdalia sings. She shows me the silver bells and mirrors she has sewn onto black pants. I'm making devil's costumes for the masqueraders, she says. Here, Nando. Senora Magdalia gives me a white handkerchief stuffed with sticks. She ties a rubber band around the middle and draws 2 black eyes. This is for you. Thank you, Senora Magdalia. I shake the ghost in my hand. How will I meet Tio Fernando's spirit? I don't know, Nando, but when you do, you will feel good inside. I think of the spooky stories my uncle told me. I remember how he made his voice deep or high or squeaky. I buy an orange and black paper goblin on a stick and a paper mache skeleton riding a small horse. I walk from one end of the market to the other and stop at every stall. There is so much to see. There's so much to think about. I meet my mother. She looks at all the things I have bought and smiles. Hold my hand, Nandito, she says. It's getting dark. The street is crowded with musicians. People in costumes and masks twirl in circles. I dance to a mummer's serenade and laugh at the actors on stage singing songs about life and death. Come, says my mother, let's go to Tio's grave now. The cemetery is nearby. Outside it, my mother and I buy marigolds, the special flowers of the dead. We place the flowers on Tio's grave, and they look like an orange blanket. We tie them on the cross, too. My mother plays the guitar and sings my uncle's favorite songs. She lights a candle and asks the soul of Tio Fernando to join us in the fiesta, to remember the world he left behind. Is Tio Fernando's spirit here? I whisper. My mother closes her eyes and puts her arm around me. I hear her heart beating, or maybe it is my own. I feel it tickling across my cheek. A bird whistles as high as a flute. A warm wind blows from my head to my feet. I look down and see how the second toe of my right foot sticks out of my sandal. The spirit of Tio Fernando! I look at my mother. She opens her eyes and smiles. Then I am sure that Tio Fernando is happy with his fiesta. He knows that we love him and that he has not been forgotten.